Some people look at Sonny Hayes. They see a guy who lives in a van, a gambling junkie who missed his shot, the best that never was. But I see possibility.
And if you don't love me now, we'll never.
My Rook is a phenomenal talent, but he's young.
Never break the chain.
You plus him, boom, I got a team.
I can't still.
When was the last time you won a race?
Sunday, Daytona.
Oh, I'm sorry. I meant Formula One.
Oh, I'm sorry. Then same as you.
There's this new guy. He's old. He's such a prick. He's quick, though.
Get any constructive criticism for each other, what would it be?
Don't be such an ass.
dickhead. That was constructive.
Wow.
Did you win something? There's 20 other drivers still out on that track. Do you think any of them respect us?
They're saying Sonny Hayes isn't a has-been. He's a never was.
If the last thing I do is drive that car, I will take that life, man. 1,000 times.
I'm offering you an open seat in Formula One. The only place you could say, if you win, you are the absolute best in the world.
Never break the chain.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to an all-new episode of the Robert Palace Podcast. I'm your host, Robert Palace. And yes, you heard that right. This show, which was formerly known as Palace Off the Top Rope, will be known going forward as the Robert Palace Podcast. Thank you for joining me, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to an all-new reimagining of how I want this show to be going forward. It's been a hot minute since I've talked with you all and given you my takes on movies, sports, and professional wrestling, which you will still be getting in full force on this show. Don't get that twisted. But I really wanted to put a more of a professional vibe into this show. I know life has gotten in the way, so I haven't been able to come with all new episodes weekly, which is a hard thing. You know, I'm not the only one in life. We all have our stuff, right, that we go through on a daily basis on the grind and working and all that stuff. But I'll just say for now, I have a lot of free time on my hands. Stuff that I won't get into right now, but eventually down the road, I'll talk about it a little bit. But I'm heading into the next chapter of my life, and I wanted to talk to y'all about that just a little bit. I'm just going to put it out there, folks. I'm going to be chasing my dream of being an actor, which scares the absolute hell out of me, which means I know that it's a good dream that I'm chasing, because as one of my idols once said, if your dreams don't scare you, then your dreams aren't big enough. So I want this podcast to be part of my new journey as I go into this industry. And we're just in an era now, or in a society where you got to market yourself and you got to market your projects. And why not have a podcast to accompany my journey as I move into this dream of mine that I've been chasing since I was a little kid. And I've always envisioned myself just doing movies and acting in movies. So I'm super excited about that. I've signed with a talent agency that I'm currently working for. About a month and a half in with them, I'm doing some incredible stuff with them, and hopefully, you know, down the line, I'll be able to be represented by them in a professional capacity. Right now, it's more of a a training and a getting ready kind of thing. And again, I'll talk about this more down the road, but just want to let you know what I've been up to with all this time that I've had. I've been enjoying my summer in 2025. I'm still going to the movies a lot, keeping in touch with the people that are closest to me. So I'm grateful for that. But yeah, this podcast is going to be approached a little differently than I have in the past. I know I've been a little harder in terms of reviewing and being a little critical, but now that I'm going to be a part of the industry or at least try to be, right, as much as I can be, I really want to approach my reviews and my takes on stuff with a more positive vibe. You know, I want to focus more on the things that I do enjoy or the things that I did like, even if it's on a movie or a show or whatever, which I didn't fully like, but I can find stuff that I did enjoy. And I would rather put my attention and my focus on that rather than harp on the negative and be super critical. Because we can all do that, right? It's easy to be super critical of movies and television shows and music and whatever it is in pop culture. Even in sports, you know, we all have our takes and our biases and all that stuff. But, you know, I really want to put a more positive vibe on it as I dive more into this industry and learn more. And this is all going to be a part of it. So I got to put it through a more professional lens and a scope while still talking about the things that I love. You know, don't get me wrong. Like, you can find constructive criticism, but really focus and hone in more on the positive. So that's what this reimagining is going to be. I hope you all join me on this journey, this new journey that I'm on, the one that I've always wanted to be on. And I hope to bring on friends and, you know, just new people onto the show. I still welcome the conversation. I was listening to a lot of my old episodes and preparing to revamp this thing, and I really enjoyed a lot of my conversations with former friends and coworkers and, you know, whoever it was. There was a lot of people that I've gotten to talk to in the couple of years that I've done this podcast. So I don't want to shy away from that because I enjoy it so much, and it just gave me a new shot in the arm listening to these old episodes. So just to let you know that you guys inspire me to continue to do this and to continue to talk about the things that I love, which are the movies and the TV shows and the sports and the wrestling. And I want to keep it all under one umbrella. I try to do too much with the past version of my show, doing spin-off shows and, you know, a sports show, sports-centric show, a movie podcast dedicated to movies from a specific era. No, I really want to keep things just, you know, under one space where you can tune into every week and get all your content and get your fill of everything that you like in pop culture and in sports. So on today's revamped, I don't want to call it a pilot episode. It's just kind of like a reboot, reimagining, you know, whatever, you know. Hollywood's got terms for everything these days. Everything gets redone and all that stuff. And some of it's good. And let's put a good spin on this. Like, this is not a remake or anything like that. This is just a continuation. It's just, we're cleaning it out, clean slate, starting new. And, let's talk about the docket on what I have for today's show. Got to check out F1, the highly anticipated new film from director Joseph Kosinski, director of Top Gun Maverick, starring Brad Pitt. I saw that in IMAX on Monday at a fan-first early screening. You'll get my review on that. I'm going to talk a little bit about the 2025 NBA Finals between the Indiana Pacers and the Oklahoma City Thunder. And for those of you that know me, I don't really watch basketball anymore, so it was a nice different pace for me as far as sporting things go. You know, I live in San Antonio, so I am a Spurs fan, and you know, I'll always love my Spurs, but I haven't really been into the NBA in a very long time. But I thought, let me actually sit through this entire series and see if I can give basketball another shot. It's a lot different now than the way I used to like to watch the game. And you'll get my thoughts on that. Again, more positives. I'm going to look into the things that I like more than just, you know, try to crap on things, which is the easy thing to do. And then WWE's got a premium live event, or pay-per-view, if you still like to call them that, coming up this weekend from Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Night of Champions, headlined by John Cena defending the Undisputed WWE Championship against my favorite, the best in the world, CM Punk. Coming up on the Robert Palace Podcast Show. Thank you for joining me, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be right back.
If there's some robot that thinks she can take over the world, it's because she hasn't met Megan yet. Yes, I'm back, etc. I'm sure you had no intention of murdering people, right? Sorry about the whole killer robot thing. It probably won't happen again.
Thank you. Rated PG-13, only in theaters June 27.
Welcome back to the show. Megan 2.0 in theaters this Friday, along with F1 starring Brad Pitt, which we'll talk about and get to in just a second. But I will be checking out Megan 2.0 tomorrow night with the Robert Palace Podcast regular, Jake Ramirez, who's been on this show numerous times as we talked movies and sports. I usually give him a hard time, and that won't stop on this show, ladies and gentlemen. That for sure will not change. I haven't seen him in a while, so it'll be nice to catch up. I believe the last movie we saw together was Alien Romulus. Pretty sure it was that one because he usually just shows up for the horror movies. But I like to, open my variety of things that I watch. I'm not usually one for horror thrillers inside the theater just because I can't really do the jump scares. It's not that the material scares me, but it's just the jump scares. But Megan ended up being a little bit more different, a little meta, a little more comedic. And this one looks like it's taking more of a like sci-fi, more action type of film, which is cool. Take creative chances and be different with your sequels. So I'm looking forward to this next chapter and what they bring us, starring Allison Williams, who I've enjoyed in Girls, and in this movie she was in Get Out. I really like her a lot, so I want to see her in more stuff. But yeah, I'll be checking that out tomorrow night. I believe Abraham Trevino, who's also another regular guest on this show, I believe he's joining us tomorrow, but I need to double check with him. I'll text him later on or tomorrow as I'm recording this late into the night, Wednesday going into Thursday. So thank you for joining me if you're listening to this on your ride home from work or to work, at the gym, at home, on a lazy day or whatever. Thank you for listening to this show. I really appreciate it. I'll plug in all the socials and how you can find this show towards the end of the episode. So let's talk about F1. Got to see it on Monday at an early fan access screening on the IMAX screen. This one for sure I wanted to check out in this format. Not every movie going forward, if it's in IMAX, do I need to see it in IMAX? It just depends on, who uses the most out of their IMAX resources. Like, Nolan is full on, will record everything or film everything in IMAX with the cameras. So, you're getting a full IMAX experience. Most of the time movies are formatted for the IMAX screen, meaning they weren't shot with IMAX cameras. They're just filmed in a way where IMAX can project the picture to be bigger on screen. I believe F1 did use some IMAX cameras. I need to double check that. Don't quote me. Don't take my gospel as factual. Like I think just given the way Kaczynski and Cruise went about with Top Gun Maverick, I'm pretty sure he was going to use the same approach. And you see a lot of the same beats as far as like how it was shot in F1, starring Brad Pitt. So I was super excited about this movie from the start, even before Brad Pitt joined. I was like, what's Kaczynski going to do next? Because, Top Gun Maverick, to me, was just a masterpiece of a sequel. The New York Times put out a link where a bunch of filmmakers and actors and pretty much any one of you subscribe to the New York Times or make a somewhat of a login account. You can submit your own top 10 best films of the century. It's only 10 movies, but we're 25 years into this millennium, so it's crazy how fast time has gone by, and there's been so many movies that have come out, and Top Gun Maverick made my list, which was super hard to do in the first place. I've seen so many great movies in these last 25 years, dating back as far as like this list goes. It started from the year 2000. That's where your starting point had to be. So any movie that came out from 2000 on, you can put on that list. And there's been a lot of great ones, so it was really hard to narrow it down. But Top Gun Maverick did make this list, and it's going to make my top 10 of the decade. We're already halfway through the 2020s, and again, it was just everything you want in a blockbuster. And when he was announced for this, that this was going to be his next venture into the world of Formula One, which I'm not even really familiar with myself. I would have to talk to my buddy Tyler Bishop, who's more probably well-versed in talking about this. And down the road, maybe I'd like to get him back on the show and talk about just Formula One in general, and then we can talk about this movie, hopefully before the end of the summer. So if you're listening to this, Tyler, an open invite to talk about F1. But my thoughts on the movie. So I rate my movies on a scale from 1 to 4. I use the Roger Ebert method. I always love the way he did his scores. Everybody, has a Letterboxd account, which is where you can rate your movies, and the highest rating they got on there is a 5. But I do the Roger Ebert 1 to 4. So I rate this a 3 out of 4. Pretty enjoyable flick. Love the use of how they film like the races and stuff. Really gets you right into the action, makes you feel like you're a part of it, almost to the point where it's like, I was hearing somebody talk about this, like how a lot of movies now feel like they're a video game, and that has its pros and cons, but I'm going to look at it from the pro standpoint, and this even goes back to the movie Ballerina, which kind of felt a little bit more video game-ish with the way its action was shot, even though it was really good action. Same thing here with F1, you really feel like you're in the racetrack with Brad Pitt, in those sequences. Just great spectacle. So if you have an IMAX screen, wherever you're listening to this from, if you have an IMAX theater in your town, go check it out. It's highly worth I believe it's like a $20, $25 ticket, depending where you live. But it's definitely worth it. The visuals are just some of the best you will see this year. I'd love to see a cinematography nomination for this movie come Oscar time. I think it's worthy of that. The story, it's not really anything that we haven't seen before. I'm a big Sylvester Stallone fan, and he did a movie kind of a little bit about F1 back in 2001 called Driven. Now, if you compare that movie to what we get now in F1, they're just clearly F1 is the far superior film. It's got the better technology. It's got the better cast, more well-rounded actors in this one as opposed to Driven. But it's kind of the same type of story. So in Driven, Stallone plays this like kind of washed up, past his prime Formula One racer who's brought back by an old mentor to teach a new like up and coming star and just kind of be his guiding force and put him on the right path as he's rising in the ranks in the Formula One world. And that's kind of the same story we get here, and just replace Stallone with Brad Pitt, and he plays that role. Although, like, the story's not that similar, but it's still like the same type of, mentor, old school, new school kind of thing. Which I did enjoy that vibe, but for me, I think Driven did a better job. I think Stallone's a much better, or I should say, underrated screenwriter in terms of, characters and how they interact with each other and relationships and that stuff. I didn't get that as much here in F1, but, really the movie sells you on its spectacle, which in my review where I put it's a little bit more flash than substance. And that's okay. Sometimes, you're going to get a little bit more flash, especially with a movie like this that's high on the action. That's what you want to go see, right? You want to see the big racing sequences, and you want to see crashes and stuff like that. And you want to see actors, just emoting and oohing and ahhing, and you get a lot of that in F1. And, it works as a summer blockbuster. But there are a couple of dark moments in this film in terms of the story, which I really wish they would dive a little bit more into, which I thought would have gave it a little bit more of an epic scale. I thought that could have bumped it up a little bit more, but that doesn't take away. Like, it's a 3-star movie. And like I tell Jake all the time, most movies that you see in your life are going to be 3 stars, where you can enjoy it for what it is. And then, you can talk about it afterwards and then, move on with the rest of your life. We get so caught up in everything having to be the greatest thing of all time or the worst thing you've ever seen. And there's got to be grounds for the middle where things can just, develop over time, where you may like it more, you may not, it may have not vibed with you as much. And I lean more towards I enjoyed this movie. Like, I would check it out again, maybe one more time on the IMAX screen. And I'm very curious to see how this movie's going to look on 4K. I'm a big physical media guy, so really I can't wait for that on home video. I want to own it just for that. I think the sequences are going to just look amazing on my 75-inch Samsung 4K TV. Again, I wanted a little bit more substance, but it doesn't take away from the fun that this movie is. Definitely a summer movie, right time to release it. We're in the end of June. It's sandwiched right in between, Jurassic World, which is coming in the next week or two, and we're coming off the heels of How to Train Your Dragon and Mission Impossible and Lilo and Stitch, and it's right in there. I mean, this has just been a great summer so far for movies. There's a lot of variety, a lot of different things that you can go check out. Some for the kiddos, some for the adults, some for both. But F1 is a nice addition to that, and I recommend it. Do I think it's as strong in the F1 type of movie? My heart's always going to be with Stallone, so I'm always going to think Driven is the better movie for me, in my opinion. But you're going to see, even if you check out Driven, you're going to say, Robert, like, what are you talking about? Like, F1 is a way better movie. And I know that deep down, but as far as like my personal taste, I got more out of Driven than I did out of this movie, but still fun. Go check it out in theaters this weekend along with Megan 2.0. I was fortunate enough to go see it early at an IMAX screen. Again, that's the way I recommend it, but if you can't, still check it out in a movie theater. Support your movie theaters and support these movies on the biggest screen possible. This movie was made from Apple Studios in conjunction with Warner Brothers, and I'm glad that Apple's still taking an interest in releasing these films theatrically. This would have sucked if it was just put on streaming, because I think it would have been a disservice considering the scope and how it's shot in the world. It just looks like incredible. Like if you see it on an IMAX screen, you'll know what I'm talking about. Where it's like, man, how could you watch this on a small screen at home? And I say that talking about being excited for the 4K home video release, but I saw it on the big screen. But I just want to see, like, in terms of how sharp it's going to look on a disc. That's what I'm looking forward to. Not that I want to just relive it at home. I'm going to go probably check this one out again one more time on the big screen before I end up buying it for home video. But F1, I think it's going to do well at the box office too. I think it's predicted at around 55 to 60 million, which is par for the course for a movie like this. It's going to be it's targeting that Mission Impossible audience, that more adult audience that's looking to get their fill of action, and they got their old school movie star in Brad Pitt. I need to talk about Brad Pitt a little bit. I like this performance here. It's just Sonny Hayes, the character that he plays. Again, there was just a lot of stuff there that I think they left untapped, and I don't know if this is going to be a sequel or anything in the future, depending on how this does. If this makes like $1 billion, obviously they're going to make a sequel, right? Or try to. But they really left a lot of meat there on the bone that we could just chew into, and maybe that was intentional, but I think they left a lot to be desired. But that's just me personally looking for more gravitas. That's okay. Not everything has to be Top Gun Maverick, which I think was the absolute best version of this kind of movie, where it's just grand scale, big in scope, and then just all the emotion and the stakes. I think that Kaczynski did a better job as far as like with the emotional heartbeats of that movie as opposed to F1, where I was maybe kind of expecting the same thing and it kind of wasn't, or at least it didn't achieve that for me. But that's okay. Like, there's still a lot of fun stuff about it. Carrie Condon, another actress that I enjoy, she's in this, plays the love interest of Brad Pitt, and it's nice to see movie stars just being gaga over each other. You can see Carrie Condon just giving googly eyes to Brad Pitt throughout this movie, and it's just brings a smile on my face. It's okay. It's okay to fawn over Brad Pitt. It's freaking Brad Pitt. But anyways, that's F1. That's my review. Super fun summer movie. Getting a lot of good stuff this summer, and I'll talk a lot next week about what I saw earlier at the beginning of summer, starting in May. When we come back, I'm going to talk the NBA Finals, and then we'll preview WWE Night of Champions. Cena Punk, one last time, coming up This is the Robert Palace Podcast. We'll be right back.
This is my farewell tour, damn it! Do you hear me? I have shut your mouth and beaten your best.
Swinging my slingshot, get out of the way or you get dropped. Lock and I'm loaded, I stay cocked. Realer than ever, you ain't not running the main lane. Billy the Kid, I'm itching the trip. Tell you to jump, I give you a wish.
But I now see that I have to become a monster to stop the monster. That title has corrupted you. And if you're not a coward,
and we're going to do it at Night of Champions for the Undisputed WWE Championship.
Knock him down like a lion. Whoa! Knock him down like a lion. Knock him down like a lion. Whoa! Knock him down like a lion.
Welcome back to the show, and before we get to our Night of Champions preview coming up this Saturday from Saudi Arabia on Peacock at noon where I'm at, so it'll be an early day of watching wrestling for me, but that's not out of the ordinary. I'm used to watching wrestling almost 24/7 in the Palace household. Let's talk a little bit of basketball. So I don't really watch the NBA anymore, haven't in a really long time. Last time I was really fully invested was back during the final run of the San Antonio Spurs, and I believe when they won the championship back, I want to say it was 2014 or 2015 against the Miami Heat. That was really the last time I was into it. It was kind of an end of an era. You know, Tim Duncan was on his way out. That dynasty of the Spurs was kind of coming to an end. And not to say I was just only watching it mainly because of the championship run, but just basketball in general was heading in a different direction as far as like the type of style of play. You know, it was during the rise of the Warriors and Steph Curry, who's amazing, but, you know, just watching people shoot threes all the time was just not really my thing. I'm more old school. I really like defense in basketball. Who I have been watching, though, since she's entered the league is Caitlin Clark. And I can say this without a shadow of a doubt. Total bandwagon on this person, but she's such a joy to watch. You know, I will record the Fever games on my DVR. I don't watch them live, but I'll jump back in whenever, you know, I'm winding down for the night, and I'll put on her games, and she's just so fun to watch. But she does everything. You know, she's an amazing shooter, passer of the ball, total in assists, and just moving the ball around. She's just doing all this incredible stuff, and she's brought so much attention to the WNBA and given it more hype and buzz, and she really is living up to the hype as far as like her play. If you ever get a chance, if you haven't watched her, just see some of her games and the way she plays, and she's just been one of the most fascinating athletes to come into the pop culture bubble, sports bubble, and hopefully this is the start of an incredible run for her as far as like getting to watch her for years and years and just be great and dominant. So yeah, the NBA Finals, like I said, I haven't watched in years, and I don't really know who the stars of the league are anymore. You know, I know the big ones who are still around, like LeBron James, and of course your Steph Curry, and I believe that's about it. I can't really name you other ones. I can name some of the stars that were in this year's finals only because I was watching the thing from start to finish. So the Indiana Pacers, headed by Tyrese Halliburton, who's a huge WWE diehard. So I was rooting for them just on the basis of that. A lot of WWE fans were also rooting for the Pacers because of this fact. Halliburton has shown up on WWE television in the last year, so I believe he's come out like 2 or 3 times. But I don't know much about his basketball game and whether like how good he is. But if your team reaches, you know, a championship game, that's got to count for something. You know, you got to be doing something right. So watching this series, I was like, is this going to be just a bunch of 3-point shooting, or the way the game has kind of transitioned into, and no one really does like that much more, you know, mid-range jumping and attacking the post and, you know, defense. And surprisingly, this felt like a very old school type of matchup. You saw a lot of defense being played, and yes, there was a lot of points being scored, but it was the defense that really stood out to me in this series, and I thought that was real fun to watch. It was a really competitive series. From what I was told, the OKC Thunder were heavy favorites going into this finals, so the fact that it went 7 games was a surprise to a lot of people, but fun for me as a viewer, right? Because you just kept tuning back game after game, not knowing where it was going to go. It was a back and forth type of series. The Pacers stealing game 1 and then just, taking advantage in the series. I think they went up 2-0 at one point, and then the Thunder came back, won another 2, and then it just kept going back and forth. Halliburton did get injured in one of the games. I believe it was game 6 or game 5, I believe it was. And in game 7, he ended up tearing his Achilles, which was a huge bummer because, we don't get that many game 7s, at least as that I was being told on the broadcast and on sports media that I follow, that game 7s are a rarity in the NBAs these days, especially in the championship level. I believe this was the first one since 2016, which was between one of the LeBron James teams that ended up winning that game 7. But OKC Thunder winning this series, they were the best team all year, so congrats to them on winning the title. But it was a fun series to watch, and again, there was old school elements that I did love, but again, there was still a lot of people just shooting threes, and that's really not my style. Like, I liked growing up watching the NBA when 3-pointers were like a special thing, and like they would come in at random points, and you'd be like, oh my god, a 3-pointer, but now it's like it's the norm and everybody does it, so it doesn't feel as special. And there was one of the games that I was watching, I think it had to have been game 6, where there was a stretch where both teams all they were doing were trying to attempt 3-pointers, and everybody kept missing. So there was like a 3-minute stretch in that game where like nobody was scoring. So it's like, dude, go for a layup or go for a little mid-range shot. Like, why are we just shooting threes? And, that's kind of the reason why I stopped watching the game. But, I'll talk about this with Jake and Abraham, who are more into still in today's NBA and like to get their thoughts on it. And I'm sure once they hear this, they're going to be shocked that I actually watched the series. I used to crap a lot on the NBA. I'm like, who watches anymore? And I know the ratings for the NBA are not as strong, but this game 7 that just happened did score its best rating for the league in about, I think, since the last game 7 that there was. So it had been a while, but hopefully we can get this kind of basketball going again. I enjoyed this series for what it was, and Halliburton became a real big star, I think, in my eyes. And I know I don't watch it regularly, but according to a lot of the sports media and the people that I follow, they said that Halliburton really did show a lot of guts and a lot of, personality and just emerging during this playoff run. So kudos to him, and we'll see if they come back. It's hard to get to a championship game in general. So the way people talk about like, are the Thunder in for winning like 3 or 4? And it's like, dude, it's hard to just win one championship. So again, just like how we do with movies, the greatest thing ever, the worst thing ever, we're so caught up in just everything becoming a dynasty these days. And it's like, dude, just be appreciative that a team won. So congrats to the Thunder. It's the first one for Oklahoma City. So happy for their fan base that they were able to experience this. And nothing's guaranteed, so who's to say that they'll be back next year? We don't know. They could, but it's not a guarantee. So just enjoy this one instead of just focusing like, oh, well, how many do you think we can win now? Can we become a dynasty? Like, just take it easy, guys. Enjoy this one. As a New England Patriots fan and a Tom Brady fan, I was used to winning a lot of them. So, just take one as they come, and then, whatever the future holds is whatever it holds. But just enjoy this one. I enjoyed this series. Will I watch next season during the regular? We'll see. Maybe. But this was a fun watch. I enjoyed it. And finally, to cap off today's episode, I want to talk about WWE Night of Champions, which is coming from Riyadh, Saudi Arabia this weekend on Peacock at noon. It's going to be an early show on a Saturday, which, man, why couldn't this happen for me when I was a kid? Watching WWE pay-per-views on a Saturday would have been just the absolute best for me, as opposed to like Sunday night and then just getting ready for school the next day. And sometimes these events would run to 10, 11 o'clock. So, really jealous of today's kids that get to watch these on a Saturday and then just get to enjoy the rest of their weekend. They can talk about it and enjoy it or replay it on a Sunday. So, yeah, that's that. This show is going to be headlined by John Cena defending the Undisputed WWE Championship against CM Punk. And I want to put more of my focus into that because, to me, this is a huge deal. John Cena is on the final run of his WWE career. He is going to officially retire at the end of December. Now, this was something that was announced from him about a year ago this time. And it started in January. He came back at the Royal Rumble. And he was your typical good guy. And then as we led into WrestleMania, he did turn into a villain. And again, I'm speaking in general terms for the audience who doesn't watch regularly. John Cena was a good guy, or as a babyface, as we like to call it in wrestling, for a majority of his entire, almost 20-plus year career. And seeing him turn into a villain was a real shock for the WWE audience, which we never thought we would see happen. He was a bad guy in the early part of his career, but that was before he was a huge star. But seeing John Cena in this fashion, in this version, has kind of been a little bit underwhelming, and there hasn't been much substance to it. And with today's WWE, there is a lot more substance because the creative thing's more long term, and stories get to develop and flesh out more. But the John Cena heel turn has just been very generic and by the numbers. And I remember tweeting about this. Twitter's another, or X, is where I am regularly still posting. Mostly because nobody really reacts to my stuff there, so I can just post my thoughts and then just be done with them. But I did mention that in this John Cena heel run, if they wanted to make something out of it, considering we're halfway in the middle of the year and close to the end, I said they need to get CM Punk involved here, because CM Punk, to me, in my eyes, in my personal opinion, is John Cena's greatest rival. He brings out the best in John Cena, and if anybody's gonna, get John to maybe push it a little bit more to the edge and get him out of his comfort zone a little bit, it's going to be CM Punk, who's always been kind of like the, they put it on a video package, the yin to the yang. They're perfect opponents for each other. And right after the Money in the Bank pay-per-view last month, Monday Night Raw, John Cena shows up and talks about how he's beaten all the heroes and everybody like that's been put in front of him. Out comes CM Punk, and the diehard fan of me just leaped for joy. I was hoping that CM Punk was going to be involved in John Cena's farewell tour at some point. I've just been reveling in everything that CM Punk has been doing in WWE since his return in November 2023 after a almost 7-8 year hiatus from the company, almost 10 years, I believe. And he left on bad terms with WWE, so I never thought we would see him again. And now that we've had him back for almost 2 years now, again, I'm just enjoying everything that he's doing. He's putting some of the best work of his career on the mic and in the ring. Even though he's not at his physical prime anymore, I still think his matches have been delivering on a very high level. He got to main event WrestleMania earlier this year, which was a highlight for me as a fan, and a highlight, I'm sure, for him, for his career, and just delivered a banger of a matchup. And now that he's involved here with John Cena, it's like, okay, cool. And we've been getting some great television segments between the both of them as far as like on the mic, and even including this past week on SmackDown, John Cena got into a physical, finally, confrontation with CM Punk, laid him out, and then just let out a 2.0 pipe bomb on him, which was famously done by CM Punk almost 14 years ago to the day, where he unleashed all his grievances with the company and kind of really catapulted him into the superstar that he is today. So that was the launching pad for him, and John Cena did like a reenactment of that, or his version of it, and it's just been some of the best television that John Cena's put out in this final year of his farewell tour. So I'm looking forward to this matchup. I know a lot of people are like, oh, why isn't this taking place at a bigger event like SummerSlam? But WWE is so global now that almost every event that they put on is very high scale. We're long from the days of like In Your House and just kind of like these smaller B-show pay-per-views, even though the matches sometimes aren't as built epically, like as they would be like on a SummerSlam or WrestleMania. But the way that WWE is making money these days and the historical revenue that they're pulling in, really any pay-per-view feels big now. And I know you can have your thoughts on the Saudi Arabia stuff, and I know some people are down on CM Punk because of, you know, his stance in the back of, like, in the past of saying, like, you know, he wouldn't do a show like this and traveling to Saudi Arabia, you know, just going against his morals and stuff like that. But I choose to leave, you know, what he personally thinks of stuff. And, you know, I'm looking at it more from just a wrestling fan standpoint. We're getting John Cena versus CM Punk in 2025 for the last time. Can you just enjoy it as a fan? And, you know, if you're down on it, whatever, that's your prerogative, but you're not going to stop this WWE diehard from enjoying this matchup, which I'm just, whether it takes place on a Monday Night Raw or a Night of Champions here in Saudi Arabia, I'll take it as it comes. You know, whatever we can get that's left of John Cena versus CM Punk in whatever capacity, I'm all in for. Do I think the match is going to be any good? Definitely not. In terms of what they've done in the past, they've put on some classics. You know, you look back at their Money in the Bank matchup in 2011, their encounter on Monday Night Raw in 2013 on the road to who was going to face The Rock at WrestleMania. They put on a classic there. These guys have fought in so many times, and they have enough classics in the catalog that I can go back to revisit those. As far as like, what's the best John Cena CM Punk match, I can go back and revisit those. Here, I'm just more here for me. It's more for the nostalgia and all that. And I've mentioned this before in the past in my podcast, but John Cena and CM Punk are kind of like the last of the nostalgia that I really get pumped for. You know, Stone Cold Steve Austin, Shawn Michaels, and Triple H, and those guys, their time has kind of really come and gone as far as like, I don't really get excited anymore when they show up on television in a capacity where like, I'm going to be like, oh my God, I can't believe this. That time is gone. Anything with John Cena and CM Punk, I'm still like, holy crap, this is incredible. Now I say that, and a report came out earlier this week about Stone Cold Steve Austin possibly having one more match in him. And the only thing that could get me to really pop hard as a fan would be if Stone Cold and CM Punk were to, you know, lock up in the squared circle. That would get me to just fly over the moon, and I can get into that nostalgia. But other than that, Cena and Punk are the tail end of me enjoying the nostalgia part of it. You know, I'm really into the newer stars, specifically on the women's side. You know, I believe the WWE women are the future of the business right now. They're just, their roster is so deep and incredible, and they're putting on incredible matches, and the characters are so awesome. The men, not so much. There's some people there, but definitely the women. And you look at NXT, and even in AEW, the women's division there is really starting to heat up, and there's a lot of good stuff there. But Night of Champions, Cena versus Punk. Obviously, I want CM Punk to win, right? I would love for him to hold another WWE Championship, and that may happen down the road. But right now, it's all about John Cena's final run. So I can see John Cena pulling out the win here. Now, would I be mad if CM Punk won? Absolutely not. I would be over the moon. But I'm expecting John Cena to win this match. Now, how it's going to happen, I don't know. Is he going to cheat? Is he going to straight up beat Punk? Is there going to be shenanigans, interference? Is this going to lead into what's going to happen at SummerSlam for either individual? You know, who knows? I'm just enjoying the run. I'm not trying to predict so much like what's going to happen in this match. I just want to vibe, man. I want to be in the moment and just experience it. Do I wish it was like at a WrestleMania or a SummerSlam? Sure, but I'm going to take it where I can get it. You know, these guys are older. They can get injured. And that's for any wrestler. They can get injured at any moment, and we don't get to get this match. You know, Cena's in the last couple of months of his run, and, you know, I was hoping that CM Punk would be a part of it, and he's going to be. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm excited. The rest of the card is it's fine for what it is. We're going to have the finals of the King and Queen of the Ring tournament. For the men, it's Randy Orton versus Cody Rhodes. I'm expecting Cody Rhodes to win this. He does eventually need to have a rematch, whether it be with John Cena for the WWE title or if CM Punk ends up winning There's been teases of that for a couple of years now, which is kind of getting me a little on edge. You know, I need this to happen. That's another dream match that I want to see CM Punk and Cody Rhodes, or at least this version of Cody Rhodes, right? With as big as he is as a babyface and the American Nightmare and all that stuff. And him and Punk are just magic on television together. So maybe that'll be the match at SummerSlam. Who knows? But I am expecting Cody Rhodes to be the king of the ring this year. For the women final, it's going to be a returning Asuka versus Jade Cargill. This could go either way, depending on the storyline and which is the more focused story. They've been building up Jade Cargill now for a while. I think she signed in the latter part of 2023, I believe. So they've been building her up for a while. Asuka's kind of been to the mountaintop. Now I think they've given her this little bit of wins in the lead up to this just because she's barely come back after like a year and a half absence. But if you want to build up Jade Cargill to like superstar, you want to have her beat someone credible. So Asuka would be a good opponent to go over. So I'm going with Jade Cargill to win here in the female side of the Queen of the Ring. Other matchups we got are the United States Championship. Jacob Fatu defending against Solo Sikoa. I'm going to go with Solo Sikoa here, winning the championship and giving Jacob Fatu a little bit of that chase. You know, he just turned into a babyface, like officially. I know the crowds have been cheering him lately, for a while now, I should say. But I really think he needs some, just some chase in him, a little bit of like, going against the grain and, having to climb that mountain. Let's have Jacob Fatu have him make that climb as a babyface, and it's just gonna make the crowd get behind him a little more. We're gonna have a street fight between Rhea Ripley and Raquel Rodriguez. That one should be fine. Rhea Ripley will probably go over. I can't see Raquel winning this unless they get Roxanne Bettis involved, who's one of my favorites. Newcomer coming up, the little girl from Laredo, Texas. I want her to really make it big in WWE just because that would be a good representation of our hometown, and that would just be incredible. Someone from Laredo, Texas just making it big in WWE. So, but I'm going with Rhea Ripley here. She needs to build back some wins, and this is a good one here for her on the road to whatever it is she's going to do the rest of the summer. And lastly, we got Sami Zayn versus Karrion Kross, who's building a little bit of momentum here with the internet crowd. We'll see how that goes. I'm expecting Sami Zayn to pull out the victory here. He needs a win as they're kind of pushing this narrative of him never winning a world title. So hopefully that'll be paid off at some point down the road. They've mentioned it a couple of times, and Triple H does like to do long-term booking and letting stories develop and flesh out over time. So I think Sami Zayn becoming a world champion will be in his future, and you want to start it off with a good singles win here. Karrion Kross, although he's building momentum on the internet, he hasn't really been showcased a lot as far as like wrestling on TV. He's been in backstage segments, and I don't really see him getting the win here because I think you don't want to beat Sami Zayn too much to the point where the audience isn't going to care anymore. They're still at the point where the audience like really cares about him, so you want to give him some nice wins. And Karrion Kross losing doesn't really affect him either way. I think the crowd is still going to be behind him regardless. And that's Night of Champions, a quick 6-match card. Really just wanted to highlight the Cena-Punk matchup, which is really what I'm going to be tuning in for. And, Cody Rhodes, Orton will be fun. Their story is also going to be a slow burn. This won't be the last time that they face each other. I think it'll be for the championship down the line. Rhea Ripley, the women, they got their Evolution show coming up in July, which is an all-female pay-per-view, which I'm really looking forward to. Hopefully they come up with some good matchups for that event. And that is Night of Champions coming to you Saturday on Peacock. I will be watching, and then I'll recap anything. If anything substantial happens on that show, I'll talk about it next week. But that's going to wrap it up for this new revamped version of the Robert Palace podcast. Thank you for joining me. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it so much. This podcast will be available everywhere on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, Amazon, however you listen to your podcast. It will definitely be there for your listening pleasure, whether you're at work or on the ride home from work, at the gym, on a lazy day. Again, I appreciate anybody that takes the opportunity to listen to what I have to say. And again, I'm on this new journey, folks, and I hope you're going to be with me. And I'm super excited. I'm nervous. I'm scared. But that's all part of life, and it's all part of the journey. And I'm just grateful and blessed that I get to do this for you all. And I'm looking forward to the road ahead. And yeah, that's going to do it. Thank you guys so much. And we'll see you on next week's episode. Take care.